This market in Halifax can be a little bit confusing if you're a first-time home buyer. So we've got some good tips to keep you on the track and get you that first home in this market in Halifax. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel, and we are going to get into the detail today because we want to give you some real solid tips of how to succeed if you're a first-time home buyer here in the Halifax market, which we all know, and hopefully you've watched some of the previous videos. We know that this is a complicated and a very interesting market because everything is starting to change. Mortgage rates are coming down a little bit. Well, right now they're staying flat, but they are going to start coming down, and my mortgage broker has definitely said that his pre-approval for January has been the strongest and the most amount of applicants he's had in any January that he's ever been a mortgage broker. So that is a key indicator that we are going to see a rapidly changing market over the next probably 4 to 6 months, and then we'll start seeing interest rates starting to come down. You got to be ready. So let's get into some tips on how you as a first-time home buyer can actually succeed in the Halifax market and find the house that you're looking for. So the first thing we want to do is talk about your financial, let's say, preparedness, because that is when you're going to sit down, talk to a mortgage broker and get an idea of your budget. Now, the good thing with that mortgage broker is they should also be talking to you. Now, okay, so let's roll back a little bit. There's two types of people that you can go to get mortgage approval. The first one is a mortgage broker. They are completely independent. They can basically go and take your information and basically shop it around to try and find the best lender possible for your given situation. So they might be looking at a BMO mortgage, they might be looking at Scotiabank, a TD. There's a whole variety of lenders that they can go to. The only one they can't go to is Royal Bank of Canada, RBC. They have the second kind of people, which are the in-house mortgage advisors tied to a bank. In a similar way, if you went to TD or BMO or Scotiabank and you talk to somebody at the bank, they are going to try to sell you their mortgage product from their bank. It's their job. Mortgage brokers can basically shop around and find you the best possible one for your given situation. So the first thing I always suggest, you really need to decide who you're going to have the best relationship with and kind of go from there. That's the first thing. One of the other aspects that you should be talking about is, I'm a first-time home buyer. What incentive programs are there for me that the government or the federal or the province can actually help me with to get me into my first home, to actually get me on the step of buying buying a property, so that you've actually got that ability to start getting on the housing ladder. Whoever you talk to from a mortgage should also be addressing down payment percentages. So you can do anything from 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 35, whatever. However, if you do a 5, 10 or a 15, there are definitely some extra levels of insurance from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, basically the government. They underwrite the mortgage with an insurance policy, and that will actually cost you some money. So also be aware of the lower the down payment you do, potentially there are some extra costs that you're going to incur. So just make sure you're asking your mortgage person about that as well. Another aspect is get into your credit score. The mortgage person is definitely going to look at your particular situation from a credit score point of view and make sure that you're good, you've got a good credit score. So that's the other thing, is potentially go and check your own credit score, see how you're doing, get ahead of the curve and make sure that there are no problems. Because one of the things that the bank is going to look at is, number one, are you a good person to lend money to? That means you've got to have a good credit score. That means that you can't have high credit balances on credit cards and be skipping payments and all of these kind of things. So check that out as well. Now let's move on to the fun stuff, which is all about identifying what you want in a home. What are your priorities? What are the needs? What are the wants? What's the wish list that we're actually looking for here? One of the best things you can do is absolutely get clear on the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. The must-haves, that's the stuff that you are like, I have to have 3 bedrooms. I have to have a garage. I have to have whatever else it may be. I mean, we all want a gorgeous kitchen and a lovely bathroom. Absolutely we do. But is that an absolute must-have? Or must it be a good kitchen and you can renovate, you can fix it up, you can do whatever you want to do later. So be careful when you're choosing the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves. The nice-to-haves is like, great, if it has all of these things, perfect. But the must-to-haves, not budging, it's got to do it. Things like, I had one client that I met recently, yesterday actually, and they were talking about got to have a fenced-in backyard. We've got a dog, it can go crazy. We do not want him legging it into the neighbors' yards and causing chaos. Must have. You should also be looking as well at proximity to schools and work and commutes and neighborhoods. Everything about that. That's really one of the key aspects I tend to focus on a lot is neighborhoods. So when people start describing to me the kind of lifestyle they want, even if they're not here in Nova Scotia, if they're here in Nova Scotia, we tend to very easily be discussing neighborhoods because they've already done the research. And that's definitely one thing as a first-time home buyer. You should be looking at neighborhoods. You should be driving around the neighborhoods, getting a feel for what's it like, not only during the week, but also at the weekends, because neighborhoods can change from the 9 till 5 p.m., 5 till 9 p.m. at night, and then also what goes on at the weekend. So definitely get out, drive around, look at neighborhoods and find the one that you're like, I love this neighborhood. This is where I want to live. Now let's get into the home search process. This is where it really starts. So we've got the budget, we've got the neighborhood, now we've got to find the house and the neighborhood and what everything else we're going to look for. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is why you want to be working with a realtor, because the realtor has got the time to research, to look at houses, to find the value, to understand the market, to see what's going on in the neighborhood, to see if this is a killer of a deal for whatever the number is. So that's one of the next things, is really start working with the realtor and start looking around at the different options of houses that that person has found. Doesn't mean to say that you can't stop looking for yourself, because sometimes when we're looking in certain neighborhoods, we're going off what you've told us, and we're obviously looking in that area, trying to find the must-haves, match the budget in the area that you want. But then all of a sudden, you might find that house, you're like, oh, hang on a minute now, like that house is absolutely perfect what we want, just not in the neighborhood that we told our realtor. So that's why we always say, don't stop searching yourself. But absolutely the realtor is there, and this is our job. We're here to find the right property that matches your needs. So that's one of the benefits of working with a realtor. Let's have a little chat about open houses, because those are a big thing that's back. Like go back 2 or 3 years ago when all of that thing was happening that we all don't really talk about too much anymore, but that stopped a lot of open houses. Right now, open houses are back on the table. So there's usually a time, Sunday 2 till 4 tends to be very typical, but we're also seeing a lot of Saturdays as well. And always make sure that, that's a time for you to go and look at other houses in the neighborhood. Maybe they're outside of your budget, maybe they don't have all of that must-have list, but get a feel for the pricing in the neighborhood, get a feel for what's it like when you're kind of looking around a house. So absolutely open houses are a possibility. The other big thing we do is the first time we're spending time with clients and we're looking at houses is we do what's called the exploratory tour. That's when we're going out and I'm literally saying to you, keep your hands in your pockets, we're not buying anything. This is a fact-finding tour. This is let's get a look into houses. Let's start asking some key questions about the houses, such as how old is the roof? What are the windows like? Are there any things that the agent thinks or the realtor thinks straight away should be addressed and should be looking to be fixed up? Whoever buys the house, yes, you're going to have the house inspection, but some of the things from a knowledgeable realtor can actually give you advice before you walk into the house or write an offer as to here are some of the things we need to talk about. Let's talk about heating systems. Let's talk about ducted heat pumps versus ductless heat pumps. Let's talk about age of decks. Let's look at driveways. Let's look at landscape. All of these things. Those are some of the things that you want to be asking about when you first walk into the house. Yes, it's always nice and shiny and it's great to be looking at houses, but ask questions. Make sure the realtor knows the answers, or if they don't know the answers, at least they're going, oh, not a problem, I'll write that down, or I'll message the realtor who's selling the house and I'll get you the answer shortly. Some of the common pitfalls, obviously, when you're doing this kind of home search process is falling in love with the first house. Right? It's one of those things that you can pretty much guarantee that is going to happen. And you've got to keep some of your emotion away from the process when you're actually looking at houses, because You can start getting very caught up in the emotion of buying a house and how much you love of certain things, and ignoring some of the other factors of the house that you really should be looking at and everything else. So you've got to keep some, we want some emotion in buying a house. This is exciting. It's the first time buying. But at the same time, you have to keep some of your emotions in check when you're looking at houses. Now comes the big part. Now comes the offer price and the negotiations. And this is what we're just about to go through with a client shortly, is that whole situation of okay, we love it, we want to write an offer, what do we do? Well, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. The first thing is you have to formally sign paperwork to let the realtor officially work on your behalf. We call this looking at houses, we call that the dating process. It's we're kind of new, it's exciting, we're getting to know each other a little bit, seeing if we like each other. When you get to actually writing an offer, well, there's that buyer brokerage agreement and we're getting married. It's on a piece of paper, it's got to get signed. So this is the exciting part, but absolutely, this is the full time when you've got to keep your emotions between the lines, because we're starting to see a little bit more, especially in certain areas where we're getting back into those multiple offer situations, because interest rates are flatlining and still not a lot of inventory. So when good houses come up in good locations at a decent price, we're starting to see those multiple offers come back in again. And this is the big process. This is where the skill of your agent comes into play, because we all know we want to get the house for the cheapest price possible. But sometimes that's not always possible because multiple offers, locations, and this is why I always say to my clients that I'm working with, do you know what? If this price is $460,000, would you pay $460,000 full ask price for this house? If the answer is yes, then great. I've got the ability to say, okay, well, absolutely, we're going to negotiate and do the best we can. But if push comes to shove and the seller is digging their heels in, we are okay paying full list price. And also, don't forget, there is definitely an amount of research that goes in with the realtor beforehand to make sure that that number is a good number and you're not overpaying in the neighborhood, because we don't want to get into that situation where potentially you did have to buy overpaid and then 2-3 years later situations change and we're trying to sell the house for you and we're I can't even get to that number. So there's definitely an amount of research beforehand, but that's the key thing. Keep your emotion between the lines during the offers and negotiation process. Now it's the closing. That's the big thing. So once you've written the offer, you definitely have conditions that you've got to remove. So you get a certain number of days, and we're talking things like financing, inspection. If you're on drilled wells, we're doing water quality, we're doing water quantity, and if there's a septic system, we're absolutely inspecting video. It can be an interesting day, the septic field. But now we're getting towards closing day, and we have a whole process of the build up to the closing day of things that you need to do to make sure that we're going to make this move as smooth as physically possible. So about 3 to 5 days, that's when the lawyer wants to see you, because there's all sorts of legal paperwork you need to sign and they've got to do their job, because that's when the lawyer really kicks in and starts doing their work. About 3 to 5 days prior and the day of closing, that's all of the lawyer's work. The upfront work for them is not actually that big. Yes, they've got to review your contract, they've got to meet you, they've got to talk about a whole load of things that may be attached to the title of the property, but the big work, that's coming towards the closing day. So that's the first thing that's going to happen. Also on closing day, we have to do a pre-close inspection walkthrough. That's when we are walking through the property and making sure that a few things are happening. Number one, everything that should have been left behind according to our offer and our accepted offer, everything is there. The second thing is, now do they all work? So we're testing dishwashers, washers, dryers, stoves, everything that's mechanical, electrical that should stay in the house and work, it's got to work. So we're checking all of those. We're doing almost like a mini house inspection to make sure that what we said and the condition it was when we actually did the first time inspection, I don't know, maybe a month ago, something like that, that's what the house has got to look like. We also want to make sure, as we're in winter now, that the driveways are cleared and free of snow and ice, because that can be good fun on closing day when first thing we have to do is shovel driveway. We're not doing that. So that's another thing that we watch out for as well. And now you've got the house. This is the celebration. This is the bit where we get to do the selfie photographs and the Instagram posts and we just bought a new house. And that is the exciting part. And this is where we would love for you, if you've got any questions, get in touch and let's sit down and let's have that buyer consultation. Let's have that exploratory tour. Let's go and date each other and let's see exactly how we can help you as a first-time home buyer find that first home here in the Halifax area.